Meeting for February 22nd at 7:15 to order. First of all, this is the first time I've actually called one to order in person.
Hey,
How fun is that?
wow.
It's crazy. Anyway, I'd like to have a roll call. Ms. Vigil, will you be doing a roll call for us to determine the quorum?
Yes, ma'am, I will. Thank you. Good evening, members of the Policy Committee. I'll be taking roll call. At this time, you may take a moment to unmute your mics. If you have technical or volume issues, please type your name into the chat box for our records. I will be calling both primary and alternate voting and non-voting members for attendance purposes. I'll begin with Stafford County Chair Cindy Shelton.
Present.
Mr. Mark Dudenheffer. Ms. Crystal Vanouche. Ms. Meg Baumke. Mr. Thomas Cohen. From Spotsylvania County, First Vice Chair Tim McLaughlin.
Here.
Mr. Chris Yakubowski.
Here.
Mr. David Ross.
Here.
Mr. Kevin Marshall. Ms. Deborah Fraser. Mr. Gary Skinner. For the City of Fredericksburg, Second Vice Chair Matthew Kelly.
Here.
Mr. Jason Graham.
Here.
Mr. Tim Baruti.
Here.
Mr. Doug Fawcett. Mr. Mark Whitley. Representative from the Secretary of Transportation, Ms. Marcy Parker.
Here.
Ms. Michelle Shropshire.
Here.
Potomac and Rappahannock Transportation Commission, PRTC, Dr. Robert Schneider.
Here.
Mr. Joseph Stainsby.
Here.
Ms. Betsy Massey. For Federal Highway Administration, FHWA, Mr. Richard Duran. Federal Transit Administration, FTA, Ms. Tanya Holland. For Virginia Department of Transportation, or VDOT, Ms. Susan Gardner.
Here.
Mr. Stephen Haynes.
Here.
For Virginia Department of Rail and Public Transportation, DRPT, Mr. Todd Horsley.
Here.
Ms. Jennifer DeBrule.
Here.
For the Commonwealth Transportation Board, Fredericksburg District, Mr. Cedric Rucker. For Caroline County, Mr. Jeffrey Black. Mr. Jeffrey Seeley. For King George County, Ms. Ann Kupka. Here. Ms. Kathy Binder.
Here.
The Fredericksburg Regional Transit, Fred, Ms. Jamie Jackson.
Here.
Mr. Aiden Quirk. And for Citizens Transportation Advisory Committee, CTAC Chair David McLaughlin.
Here.
CTAC Vice Chair Al Durante. Roll call has been taken. The February 22nd, 2021 FAMPO Policy Committee meeting does have a quorum. All attendants, please put your mics back on mute unless recognized by the chair to speak. Roll call is complete. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I failed to read a statement that I should have read at the beginning, and I'd like to read it now, if you don't mind. Due to the nature of the declaration of the state of emergency due to the novel coronavirus COVID-19, pursuant to Code 2.2-3708.2, this meeting is to be held by electronic communications via the web platform GoToMeeting. The catastrophic nature of this declared emergency makes it impractical and unsafe to assemble a quorum in a single location. And the purpose of this meeting is to discuss or transact the business statutorily required or necessary to continue the operation of the public body. And as you saw, we do have a quorum. The next item on the agenda is approval of the February 22nd, 2021 Policy Committee agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is seconded. Do I have any discussion?
Chair, two items. First of all, number 8A, if we can remove that, VDOT has asked us to postpone it to a later meeting. They aren't ready because of some internal processes. So if we could remove 8A, we're not going to discuss it tonight. And 8E, which is the draft resolution that fits 2117, that becomes an action item, not just the draft resolution. So we'll discuss it later in the meeting, but it is actually for item tonight. Any reasons to have it passed over and removed so we can actually make a decision on that one. And then just finally, if we could just ask everybody online, if you're not speaking, just to mute your microphone. Sometimes when you move and bump something, it makes quite a noise on the online thing. So if we could just ask everyone who's not speaking, just to please mute your microphone. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion with changes suggested by the administrator.
I'll accept it as a second.
Thank you very much. Any additional discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nay? I'm sorry, thank you. Any nays? Any abstentions? Chair votes aye, motion passes. Next item on the agenda has to do with public involvement. Are there any individuals that are on this call or in this room, I don't think so, that wish to make any comments? Hearing none, I'll close the item 4 out of our agenda. Next item is public hearing. Do we have any questions or comments from members of the public concerning the draft FY21 UPWP amendment?
Chair, we've not received any written or emailed comments to date, but if there's anybody online who wishes to make a comment, they're welcome to make so.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone online who wishes to make a comment concerning the FY21 UPWP amendment? Okay, thank you. Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 6, which is our consent agenda.
Madam Mayor, Madam Chair, I'll move the consent agenda as submitted.
Thank you, sir. Do you have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Don't choke.
Hearing none, all who approve say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstention? Chair votes aye, the consent agenda passes as written.
All right. We are now up to date, Madam Chair, with all the outstanding minutes. There's nothing outstanding now. We've caught up with everything.
Thank you, which is a perfect segue into item number 7, Mr. Ollis, which is the FAMPO Administrative Report.
Thank you, Chair. This month, I'm going to keep it a lot shorter than last month and tighter. So, yes, we should probably be out of here in a reasonable amount of time. So, this is my report for February. As you know, you don't need to vote on any of this. This is just my thinking and my view of how things are transpiring at FAMPO with our staff and with the projects that we're working on. So if I can have the next slide. So we're going to look at the possibility of new federal funding, regional transportation overview. There's not going to be much by way of an office update, but we will do an office update as well. Next. Okay, that's just my monthly report. Next slide. So federal funding. There's a possibility in the next term of office that we're going to have new or increased federal funding for transportation. And some of these things are being considered right now at federal level. So there's a transportation reauthorization bill that's in the works in Congress. It's going to be brought forward very soon. They're having discussions behind the scenes and, lobbying and all that kind of thing. But it looks like a reauthorization bill is in the works, and that will probably increase the amount of funding for, I think it's the next 5 years, if I'm not mistaken. So we wait to see what the result is, but it looks like that's in the works. Then the Appropriations Committee is considering that particular bill as well, which deals with funding for transportation. We wait to see the outcome of that, but it's also in the works. And the new Secretary of Transportation, as you know, is pushing for funding for high-speed rail. We don't know what that looks like. We don't know if there'll be a lot of money or none. But anyway, those are the 3 biggest things that we have to consider that may be coming in very short succession in the new year with the new administration. Next slide. So you can't see that from here where you're sitting, unfortunately, it's a little bit small, but I just picked out the report from the Census Bureau as to when they expect to give us items. And you can see the dates on the right-hand side, starting with May the 4th, May the 27th, and June the 17th. And those are the dates we're going to get numbers in terms of population, density, jobs, and all this kind of thing. And that's a direct quote from the website of the Census Bureau. So it just gives us a little bit of an idea. We're going to start getting actual useful demographic numbers from about the 4th of May. We won't get things like the urban boundaries in May, but we're going to get the data that we can use for mapping, for density calculations, and those types of things May and June this year. That's there. Obviously, it's all subject to change because the Census Bureau every now and again comes back and says they have a delay, but that's the dates that we're looking at currently. Next slide. So, last presentation, I didn't talk much about bike or pedestrian movements. And I'm concerned about some dangerous intersections that we have, dangerous for pedestrians and for bicyclists. So I've just picked on a couple. So please don't feel if you're from this particular area that I'm picking on you. These are just illustrative examples of the point that I'm making. So if you look at this one, this is called the Silver Parkway. You can see you have a lovely sidewalk in the diagram with some nice ramps for people that are disabled. But then you're on the tarmac crossing called the Silver Parkway, where you could get hit by a car or a truck or something falls off a truck. There's no actual crosswalk painted even. And it's not an expensive thing to fix if you just get out the proper kind of paint and paint the crosswalk there. This doesn't have to be $1 million project from VDOT. We can fix some of these fairly simply. Next. This is another intersection. Sorry about the color. Can you play that video? Is it possible? Apple?
That's for 3. That's the mall.
Okay, the video won't play. This is directly Central Park. Yeah. This is Route 3. You know the route.
Big stop, yeah.
I recorded an actual video of the traffic and how difficult it is to cross there. But you know the intersection. You can see here the median. If you look at that picture, the median goes right up to the traffic light. There isn't a space to put a crosswalk. You would have to chop back that median and then again get out your white paint and paint some lines. It's a little more expensive, but still it's doable. This is between, this is a major roadway between the Spotsylvania Town Center and the city of Fredericksburg's Central Park. So it's a key place where people are going to walk, push a child in a stroller, or someone in a wheelchair might need to get across. It's a, how many lanes now? 8 lanes? Come on, man. These are yours. Bunch of lanes. So these
Hours.
when you push that road through, then we'll pay for it. These are the kind of intersections I think are quite concerning. And problem with that. Seriously. And in some cases, for a bit of painting, we can fix them. Okay, next one.
I was talking about that before you got here.
There we go. This is Stafford now. This is the leading area. What?
We're starting to feel left out.
So don't feel left out. This is the Leland area, okay? 2 different intersections. There's a sidewalk at the Leland train station, but there's no way to cross the road because there's no painted lines, there isn't a traffic light, there's nothing. Somebody with a stroller is going to have to check for cars, dodge cars to cross the road. You've got to run fast with this road. So again, yeah, at least a bit of paint. We could do something. And on the right-hand side, this is further down Leland Road at the Deacon Road intersection. You've actually got bike lanes, but there's no place to cross for pedestrians. So, and there's a store there. I think it's a 7-Eleven or something store there. Again, pull this up for cars back a little, paint a crosswalk. It's not a hugely expensive thing, but we have a number of these intersections in the Tampa region that I think we can fix quite quickly.
Let me ask you a question. Are we even allowed to do that?
Well, I will take that up with VDOT for you.
Because I would say, don't disagree, but, VDOT controls all that stuff. So even if it sounds like a good idea, they may say no.
But I think that we should have these discussions with VDOT, and if they say no, I'd like to know why. And I mean, VDOT's on the line here listening to me, so I'm sure they'll call me in the morning with some rude comments about my presentation.
That's all right.
But feel free to call me in the morning with the rude comments about my presentation. So these are just some of the intersections I think we should be a little concerned about because they're high traffic areas. Where a lot of people need to get to the train or a lot of people need to go shopping, and they're a little dangerous, I think, for pedestrians. Next slide. Okay, great. I'm not going to say much about rail this time. We talked about it indefinitely, but just a bill that was passed last week, which I think you should be aware of, is this House Bill 1236 in Maryland, not in Virginia, in Maryland, but it is empowering MARC trains to negotiate with the VRE and with CSX to bring MARC trains into Virginia. The governor of Maryland vetoed it, and they overrode it with a vote in the House and a vote in the Senate. So it is approved. So they have authority to go and negotiate with VRE to bring MARC trains into the area. I hope that VRE is going to get a good deal for us when they come to VRE and say, hey, we want to bring trains in your area. Well, what about us getting a reciprocal agreement? I hope that that's on the cards from our side. And then a question I got in our CTAC meeting, the answer I've got up there for you is, how do we get electrified trains here to Fredericksburg when the VRE line is not electrified? The answer is that thing there. It's a locomotive that's run currently by New Jersey Transit. It's a dual locomotive. It's diesel and electric. So it can operate where there are cables electrically. Where there are no cables, it operates with diesel fuel the same way that the Amtrak ones do right now and the VRE ones right now. That vehicle is the solution both for MARC and for VRE to move trains into each other's area. There is another small problem, which is the height of the platforms north of Union Station are different to the height of the platforms here. So there is something that they'll need to do with coaches as well. But that, if you put that locomotive on the front of our coaches, it solves a lot of the technical problems. It's not a cheap locomotive because it's dual, but it can be done, and it looks like Maryland is going down that route already. So it's something coming. Initially, they're targeting to bring MARC trains to Alexandria, Northern Virginia, but it's the first step in the process of bringing them all the way down here to Fredericksburg. So we can expect this to be a reality. It's not just somebody's theory that loaded it through. It's on the way. It'll come to our region. Next. Plus, some improvements to the Fred system. Colleagues from Fredericksburg that we're very excited about. Fred has budgeted in the 22 budget to start a Saturday service on a number of routes that are not currently running on Saturdays. So there'll be Saturday bus service. With the approval of the board, they're looking at starting buses from 7 a.m. Instead of currently, some of those buses only start at 8 a.m. And if you need to get to work on the bus and you use the bus to get to work, and the bus only starts operating from 8 a.m., you might need to already be at work at 8 a.m. They're now going to shift with the permission of this board and all the role players, it's in process, to starting buses at 7 a.m. I think that this is going to help with their ridership numbers because you're going to get those people who've not been using the bus because it starts a little late in the morning to now be able to do this. Those are two improvements. And finally, the new route chart app to give you real-time bus location. Where is the bus? Well, there's an app on your phone. You can look up where your bus is, why it's late. You can see on the phone. So those are three improvements coming for Fred Bus. I think those are great. They discussed it at their recent advisory committee meeting, and I think they're really great things that we can look forward to for increased and better service of the Fred Bus. Next. The way forward, and I'm almost done, Jeff. Some general updates. We have submitted our application to DRPT for our East-West Mobility Study. I believe it's been well received. We don't know if we're going to get funding or not yet, so we have to wait for that process, but the application is in. Our long-range transportation plan update is in your pack. We'll discuss it later on. In future, we still want to look at a broad mobility and accessibility survey. For example, we could ask questions about VRE, OmniRide, and Fred. Why don't you take Fred? Why don't you take OmniRide? Why don't you take VRE? To find out from the public and commuters why they choose particular modes of transportation, and improvements that we might be able to bring about that would cause them to use public transportation more frequently. And as you know, that will reduce congestion in places. So we were looking at that in the future. Freight movement study, I showed last time the freight numbers. The amount of freight moving on our roads is growing at an alarming rate. And I think we need to study that a little bit, find out the reasons for that. Is it because there's not enough capacity on the rail line? Or is it because the destinations are not served by the rail system? Or what is the reason that the freight on the roads is growing so much more, even I think at the moment, than the car traffic? If you look at those, Virginia, certainly during COVID, the freight is growing and the car traffic reduced. With the freight traffic, it was as if COVID never happened. The freight just grew 10, 15%. It's remarkable. Then I made a point here saying we'd like to work as FAMPO staff with Spotsylvania and Fredericksburg on salvaging as much as we can of the BCR right-of-way, the rails and trails. Some of them have been turned already into trails, but they're not all connected. There's some missing bits, the areas I showed in the map last time of the gaps. And I'd like to just at least reach out to the city and to Spotsylvania to just start a little discussion about anything we can do to help as FAMPO. And I'm sure that there's some things that we can do to help connect up the dots. And we'll see how we can do that. And finally, staff has already started working on the Unified Planning Work Program, the UPWP. We'll present some of that work in time when it's the appropriate time. Next. That's my presentation. I told you I'd keep it quite short. So I'm done. I'm happy to take any questions, but that's all I have to share today. Thank you.
Any questions for anyone in the room? Any questions for people online? Okay,
The presentation will be put on the website and sent to all committee members, so you'll get a copy.
thank you very much, Mr. Wallace. Next item on the agenda is moving into our action and discussion items. The first item is the Transportation Planning Board TPB FAMPO Memorandum of Understanding update. Mr. Wallace, you'll be covering this as well. Just a reminder, this is a mandatory annual review of the MOU. I'm sure you're going to cover that. Okay.
Yeah. So this is not that particular item. This is the TPB MOU, Chair.
Oh my
So
goodness,
the FAMPO one is coming a little later in the agenda. The TPB item 8B, we've been asked by the PAC for us not to vote on it this month because the amendments that were suggested by the TPB, they believe that they wanted a little more time to read them, to understand them, and to check with fellow staff members about the content of them. So we did not vote on it at the TAC. We passed it over till next month. We will bring it back. So the same thing tonight. We're not going to ask you to vote on the TPB amendments that were brought to us by the TPB on the TPB MOU. So we bring it to you for information. However, I must just say that we got no comments from VDOT. We got no comments from the FHWA. And so far, we've received no comments from the TAC as to any problems with it. Our staff, looking at those things, see most of them as just administrative matters. The language that's in there is language that you've seen before because it was all presented as part of the longer version of this MOU, and FAMPO edited it out. So FAMPO took a crayon and deleted those paragraphs, and the TPB said, no. Thank you for voting the thing through, but we want our original language back in the document in some paragraphs. So they've come back to us with this version, and all they've done is put back half of the paragraphs that we deleted with our crayon and said, no, please can we have these back in? So as a start, we looked at it, and we don't see any substantive matters in there. It's adding language, more language to concepts that are already in there. However, these are paragraphs which FAMPO deleted the first time round. So we're not asking you to vote on them tonight. Please pay attention to the document because we are going to ask you to vote on it at the next meeting. So don't throw it away. It is in the works. The TAC will hopefully approve it or make a minor amendment if they feel very strongly about it, and then we'll bring it back to you next month for a vote. So that's all I have to say. It's all in your pack, all the attachments are in your pack.
Mr. Kelly, before you speak, I just want to say that I think that a lot of the things that we're adding back in were the things that you fought for us not to take out. So, but please, it's your turn to talk. Please, Mr. Kelly, I reckon.
No, I just got a question. See, this has been kind of a long, strange trip with this agreement. And we're gonna start getting the numbers in May that is gonna signify the potential changes of the urbanized area. Is time kind of past this a little bit by?
Well, I mean, you know, we act on what we're asked to do, and at the moment, we're asked to do this, and so we're going to do it.
Has the Fed been putting any pressure on us on this, or they pretty much stopped?
Nobody's putting any pressure on me right now to do anything. The TPB have postponed they were voting on it this week as well. They postponed their vote on it to allow us time to be comfortable with the language, so they're not voting.
So it will be coming back to the next.
They'll come back.
So please review the TPB as written, communicate to your TAC members, and be ready to vote on it next meeting.
I don't think anybody's going to have any major problems with it, but if somebody finds a sentence they really can't live with, then please let us know.
Okay. Next item is item C, amending the FAMCO, CMAQ, and SPDG prioritization methodology. This is an action item. Mr. Oziak, are you presenting?
It's Anita, Madam Chairman, members of the board, Alex Oziak, Chairman of the TAC. Just wanted to give a brief introduction before turning it over to Adam to give a presentation. As you mentioned, tonight's item regarding the prioritization methodology is up for action by the policy committee. The proposed changes to the STBG prioritization methodology incorporate kind of additional scoring element for projects that provide a direct benefit to the North Stafford TMA area. And just in a second, Adam's going to give a brief presentation summarizing those updates. I will say there have been no additional changes to the document since it was presented last month, and the TAC does recommend approval. And with that, I'll turn it over to Adam.
Thank you, Alex, and Madam Chair and members of the committee. Don't have a big presentation this month. We covered this last month in detail, and I did want to call everyone's attention to the summary table in case there were any questions. But as Alex mentioned, there are no changes from last month. Our TAC did approve the document, and we are looking to use it for this year's FY 22 to 27 call for projects, which we are also asking for action on tonight to initiate on March 1st. So I'm happy to take any questions. And again, we are looking for approval of the updated methodology.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions, Mr. Kelly?
Just the one question I asked last time, just make sure we're clear on it, because this is going from 22 to 27, and obviously things are potentially going to change between 22 and 27. And I'm assuming that if those changes come about, that we will be having this conversation again about what the methodology is as the dynamics change. And I just want to make sure we all understand that.
From a staff perspective, we would ask for approval tonight and for the action item to call for submissions from the localities. If in 6 months or a year or 18 months, there is a change to the TMA and we need to revisit it, as a staff, we're quite prepared to revisit the calculations. But that is something we take instructions from you.
I just want to make sure that's reflected in the minutes.
Any other comments or questions? Go ahead, I can't see who that is.
Jason Graham.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Graham, I'm sorry, I couldn't see you. Yes,
That's
please.
right, Madam Chair. Thank you. No, as I was looking over this between the last meeting and tonight, I just can't get behind the idea of only looking at it as a straight benefit to the TMA. I think there's something more universal that we could be looking at in terms of these bonus points, because if we're really talking about what is a regional benefit, just whether or not it benefits the TMA, that's not really a regional approach. And I understand that may have been the directive, but I want to maybe just give an opportunity to discuss an idea about maybe the number of people involved, or to take some of these measurements that you have and look at them from a broader perspective, because I think that there's something to be said about looking at this, for projects that could help Spotsylvania County or could help the city or places where they intersect, rather than just the TMA. I recognize that the TMA is a large and important part of the region, but I feel like this is going to be done in such a way that it can be a detriment to the rest of the region. I know you brought up some examples there, and I appreciate going through them. I do worry about what this will look like going forward. Yes, as Mr. Kelly said, we could revisit this as the TMA changes, the census numbers come back in. But I just like to see if there's any other comments from other members about making sure that this is not going to end up with something so heavy on the TMA that the rest of the region gets ignored.
Any other questions or comments?
Can I ask a question to VDOT?
Sure, please.
Marcy, Michelle, if you are still with us, you've had an opportunity to review this, and Mr. Graham is pointing out something that has been a part of the discussion. We're a regional organization, and there was some concerns about being so restrictive that it would probably violate federal and state regs on transportation funding. Does VDOT have any particular heartaches with this, moving this forward?
This is Marcy. Excuse me. You may remember that last month I had said that I would prefer to see an entire revamp of the prioritization process, and the response I got was that we don't have the time, and the census will change some of the numbers. So for this minor change, we don't really have much issue. Our central office reviewed it. FHWA has reviewed it. So we are okay with moving forward with this, understanding that once the census comes in and we see what shakes out for the region, that we may really need to look at updating the entire prioritization system, as other MPOs across the state have been doing since Smart Scale came into effect.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Is there a motion?
Hi, Madam Chair, this is Mark Dudenheffer. I apologize for being late. And I would say that this is definitely a compromise. It isn't really what Stafford wanted, and things that I've said over the last couple of years as we've gone through this, but I see this as a compromise, and therefore I move for acceptance.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, all who approve say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstention? Chair votes aye, motion is approved. Next item on the agenda is the LRTP update. Again, Mr. Ollis.
Can I just check with Adam, do we need to vote also on the 22-27 call for projects?
Oh my gosh. sorry.
Yes, Madam Chair, if we could take action so we can have that reflected in the minutes to initiate the call for projects process at the March 1st TAC meeting. We'd also like the board to take action on that this evening.
So
There's no document, it's just the permission to continue.
So moved.
Understood. Thank you very much for correcting me. I have a motion and I have a second. Any discussion? Go ahead, who's second? I thought you said.
I motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Do you get that, Leah? A motion from Mr. Kelly and a second from
Yes,
Mr. Manish?
Yes, thank you.
Any discussion? All in approve say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Chair votes aye. Call for projects has been initiated. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
And thank you for correcting me. I appreciate that. Next item on the agenda, as I mentioned before, is the 2050 LRPT update. Mr. Ollis.
Thank you, Chair. We are going to bring you some updates from time to time on the progress of LRTP. want to show you what we're doing. So we approved where we are in the timeline. An amendment to the 2045 LRTD was done in April 2018. We're supposed to update our LRTD every 5 years. That gives us until, can you see the date there? April 2023. That's the latest we can finish it. So that's the absolute deadline. I'm proposing to just slow down one aspect of the LRTP development, and that is the working out of the scoring methodology. Because this LRTP update was started quite with some gusto, and I'm just concerned that if we rush the prioritization methodology, or we call for submission of projects before you see how we're going to amend the prioritization methodology, jurisdictions might be in a position where they find out after they submitted their project that it's not going to do well in the scoring system. So we'd like to really carefully do the prioritization methodology, bring it to you all for approval, and you'll see we've done it in chunks, and the first chunk is almost ready for approval. The roadway is one, which is the biggest one. It's almost ready, in fact. But it does mean that I'm going to be asking that we don't treat December 2021 as the hard deadline to complete the entire document. Might take us just a month or two more to finish it, because I have slowed down this little phase where we actually consider roadway scoring, transit and TDM scoring, scoring for studies, and the scoring for bike and ped projects. And we bring each one of those blocks to you to vote on, so that you know exactly, and the TAC knows exactly how that scoring methodology is going to be. So the only change here is I'm just asking that we don't treat 31st of December 2021 as a hard deadline, because then we're going to have to rush. And I don't want to rush this, because later on people are going to complain that they don't like the way the scoring's been done because it was rushed. We're doing a thorough job. We're looking at our smart scale scores, our CMAX scores, and we're trying to align the scoring of the LRTP so that if your project gets into the LRTP, it's probably going to do quite well in smart scale or CMAX funding systems down the line. So that's what we're doing. But we're not doing it in a dark corner. We're doing it in front of you with your permission, with your input and so on. So it's a little bit of a change. There was a deadline set, but we set the deadline. No one's asked us to do it by the end of this year. We have to do it by the end of 2023. And we were one of the first MPOs in the state to actually start this process. We started really early. So that's the one change I'd like to put to you. Given that we're anyway going to have a 2045 LRTP update at some point this year, it means that if you needed to put in a change to a project, you have a mechanism to do that. It's not as if you'd be locked as a jurisdiction, because we have a 2045 amendment that we need to do this year at some stage. For various reasons, we have to do an amendment. So you have the opportunity to change that. Next. We have a highway prioritization methodology that was adopted in 2008, and we've had some changes. We've listed there for you. This is all in your pack. So we would like to, that's some of the rationale for why we want to update the highway prioritization, the roadway prioritization methodology. 2008 is a long time ago. Some regulations have changed, some circumstances have changed, and we like to do a proper job of that. Next. You remember we moved from category A to, or topology A to topology B. That has some changes to our methodology. The transit was prioritized in 2045 as part of a study. And we don't think it's wise to have a whole new study that has to be funded every time we want to choose projects. So we'd rather have a prioritization methodology that you all look at, think through, vote. So we don't have to call for a new study every time we do an LRTP update. We can actually use a prioritization methodology. Bike ped projects, you can see this is all stuff that's in your pack. I'm not going to read through the slides in every line by line. So we want to do this as a clear, simple, objective prioritization methodology for each type, those 4 types. Bring those to you, have you vote on them, and then we'll call for projects. So as soon as we voted on them, we can the next day call for projects. And then we're not really holding up the system. So you have two opportunities to change projects. The first one is with the 2045 LRTP update. The second one is when the day after you vote through those 4 prioritization methodology chunks, which are in the works. The roadways one is almost done. We've started the transit one. It's going to be done very soon. Next. The other thing that I'm doing is a new scenario planning framework. Thankfully, I don't think it's going to cost us very much. We've already agreed to hire a consultant to do the modeling of your projects. So when you decide on your project, you submit them to us. We've got Cambridge Systematics on call. They're working on it already, and they will model the impact of your projects for us to be put in LRTP. But VDOT have got a modeling department, which I discovered with a little bit of research, and they're prepared to do scenario modeling for us to be put into our LRTP. So we've contacted them. We're doing some data repair, and VDOT has a model of our region that already exists on their computer system, and they will model scenarios for us. And we're coming up with a list of scenarios to model things like, what if the housing grows faster than we anticipate? What if more jobs are created locally than in DC? Or all kinds of options that we can model. So we're updating the chapter in the LRTP that deals with scenario planning, and we've got VDOT available to help us do that, and we've already spoken to them. Next slide. So the next steps. The goals and objectives you're going to get tonight. Our lady is standing by to give you a presentation on that. The draft criteria for the roadway projects is already in the pages of the presentation. You can see we have already taken the draft methodology and we've run current projects or previous projects that were approved in Smart Scale that have been submitted by FAMPO, and seeing what our scoring methodology would do to those projects. And you can see an example in your pack. We're going to take that to the TAC for them to have another look at. So you can see, before you approve it, the kind of things it will do to your project. So you have an example, a whole set of worked examples that show you, if we adopt this methodology to score roadway projects in LRTP, this is what will happen. So it shows you what happens to a bus project or a roadway widening or an extra lane or an access point or a traffic light. This is how, and so you know in advance and then have some level of comfort in voting through that prioritization methodology, because you'll be able to see what the impact will be. There are worked examples in every category. Matthew spent the past week actually doing that, and we're damn close to the way Smart Scale has already projects. So it pretty much shows you that you will get a similar kind of outcome on Smart Scale as what you'll get with our roadway prioritization methodology. But you can look through it at your leisure in some detail. We're not asking you to vote for anything tonight, but it's in the packet as well. So there's an example of, just go to the previous slide, Adam. There's the scoring methodology for roadways, just by way of an example. So you can see it there. We've taken the first draft to the TAC. It's there in your pack as well. We're going to workshop it. Adam's asked for a date to workshop it with TAC members who want to go over exactly how the calculations occur. And we'll then bring it to you once the TAC is happy with the way it's done and show you examples of how it impacts you for your applications. And the workshop is going to be in March before we ask you to approve it in April. So you'll know exactly how your projects are going to be scored before we go forward. Projected revenues have been requested by staff. We'll get them shortly. And we're building a project database to identify and track, as I've said, projects and FAMPO documents. And what I'm intending to do now is bring you a regular short update of the LRTP as we complete each step. As we complete the prioritization methodology for roads, you'll get it. For transit, you'll get it. For bike and ped, you'll get it. Then you'll vote for them. Then we'll call for projects. But I'm going to bring you step-by-step chunks, rather than work a long time kind of in the dark and then bring in this whole thing at the end and say, hey, yeah, approve it. So you will have approved a big amount of the chunks that go in to make up the total project before we finish the LRTP. Okay? And I think I've probably said quite enough about this. Adam, are there any further slides that we need to look at before I hand over to Stacey? That's this.
No, that's all.
Okay, so
This one,
that's what
Mr.
we are.
McLaughlin.
So the constrained long range plan, what is that? The document you're updating.
So the constraint list is part of the FAMPO, part of the LRTP document. And I don't have a date for you right now, just off the top of my head. But we only get to deal with the constrained financial matters once we've got the projects, we've modeled, Cambridge Systematics has done the modeling, and we've scored all of the projects. We then have to take that scored list of projects and compare the costs that have been submitted against the constrained finance. So it's coming in later on.
So I guess the question to make sure that all the previously approved projects, Smart Scale and all the other ones are in that plan currently. So as the Smart Scale projects were just announced a few months ago, are they currently in our constrained long range plan or not?
Adam?
So there's two projects, Ms. McLaughlin, that are not currently in the LRTP, and so we are going through the process right now with VDOT and with the TAC to add those projects over the next 2 months.
All of Smart Scale and all the new projects from jurisdictions will be updated, and we'll vote on that at the next, when we approve, is that correct?
So
It'll
they're
be
all
going to 2 months, but yes, sir.
Yeah, which two are not in?
Sorry, I couldn't hear that.
Which two projects he was asking are not currently in the LRTP?
Right now, the Route 208 operational and multimodal improvements in Spotsylvania County, that was a FAMPO project for Smart Scale. And then the Route 1/208 area multimodal and revitalization improvements. So both in Spotsylvania County.
So those are the two we have to add.
All the other Smart Scale projects are already in the CLRP?
They're already in. And we have just been on, we actually asked VDOT quite some months ago whether we should add some, and we weren't instructed to do so at the time. But subsequent to the last TAC meeting, we've now been asked to do that, and we've already started on the process, so it's in process.
Mr. Hill?
Just as you move forward with this, and just for whatever it's worth category, some of us were in this room when the whole Smart Scale discussion started. And one of the things in the course of the discussion is we have regional priorities and projects that we need to do. And the question was, the Smart Scale can meet those? And what ends up happening is, my fear then was, instead of maintaining our priorities, we were going to start shifting our priorities to meet Smart Scale. And I understand we need to look at that. I think it's important that we understand how we can explore, but I hope we don't go too far on and basically trash our priorities, because frankly, some of the biggest projects that we've had funded scored like dog, in Smart Scale. We had to fight like mad, and frankly, CTV went down and brought them out. So I just don't want to get us too married to.
So we're using Smart Scale categories like safety and all that sort of jazz, but we're not using their scoring methodology. We're using our own scoring methodology in those basic blocks. So we've got a safety block. We've got a block that talks about regional. You'll see when you get it. I wrote this section together with Adam and some others on regional priorities. We wrote it. I wrote it with Adam and with Matthew and Stacey and so on. So we're not using their scoring methodology, but we are using their broad categories, because we know that when we get projects in there and it goes there for funding, those are the categories they're going to look at. It's no point us adding a totally different set of categories. But we were surprised when we did a rough scoring of our existing projects. They score, there are a few changes you'll see when you look at it in your pack. So there are a few little changes where we didn't score exactly the same as Smart Scale, but we're pretty close. So
It's important to have that information. I just didn't want to see us changing everything.
Yeah, we're not,
because we got to get as much money as we can, so we're going to start.
Yeah, so we're not using exactly the Smart Scale calculations. We're using our own, but we're using their broad categories so that when you submit it for Smart Scale, you've already done half the work. because you did the work to get it in the LRTP, so you don't have to go reinvent the wheel all over again. You've got all those categories taken care of when you do your smart scale applications. So with that, sorry, another question?
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. Do we have any dashboards to see, over time, how these projects actually end up maybe helping, or just as a region, are we starting to meet the goals? I understand, like, yes, this is a 30-year time span, but just even to see if we're on the right track as we're moving forward, or are we moving in the wrong direction? Whether it's congestion or transit ridership, things like that. Do we have any sort of easy dashboards just to help us get an understanding of maybe where some of the problem areas might be?
So I would say two things to that, Madam Chair. The one is that I just want to understand, when you say compared to the goals, which goals or whose goals you're talking about. But the other half of the answer is that the whole reason we employ Canterbury Systematics to do modeling of the projects is to look at what the impact of those projects of yours will be on congestion, will be on the roadways, will be on, and one of the things that I've been insistent on this year is that they look at, with VDOT doing our modeling of the scenarios, is that they look at what happens if we get a more frequent bus system, or what happens if we have more trains on DRE than we're expecting, because it looks like there's some money for rail and we may get some more trains. So I'm asking all along that they model the what ifs. What if we get more trains? What if we get more frequent buses? So we're looking at all those scenarios, what could happen to our roadways and to congestion and to these other factors. So we're paying money to get people to tell us through modeling what's going to happen as a result of these projects. So these projects are not just scored according to our scored methodology, they're also modeled to see what the impacts are. But I'm not quite sure which goals you were asking about, which
goals might have been maybe the incorrect word to use, but even just to understand the situation on the ground, just congestion, like, trying to come up with definitive metrics around congestion, for instance, and at various parts of the region. Understand transit ridership, dashboards around transit ridership at different times of day, different localities, things like that. And just, anything that can help us better understand the current situation, rather than just kind of putting a finger in the air and saying, well, I think this might be the issue. If there's something that we can work toward to get a better data-driven approach to understanding where the pain points are, that we could all see, I think that could also be helpful as we look to make some of these determinations as well.
I understand, Madam Chair. The answer is that we're using data-driven approaches in the scoring. If you look at the roadway scoring, which is in your pack, we're using streetlight data, for example, to get accurate numbers of how many cars on what corner at what time of the day. So we're using streetlight data as part of the criteria for our prioritization methodology. We're also using Cambridge Systematics to model all of the projects that will get submitted this year to the LRTP. And we're now also, at my request, working with the VDOT modeling team to model what if it's different? What if it's not like we expect? And I've come up with a list of what ifs. What if there are more trains or less trains, more buses or less buses? What if we have more housing than we expect? What if the housing booms in this area and we have many more houses? What will that do? So we are doing those three things to try and deal with not just having a thumbs up.
Did you use Cambridge? Did Cambridge do the modeling the last round of Smart Scan?
So the FAMPA, and I'll get to that in the document just now in the agenda. But FAMPA has had the same consultants on on-call contracts for 5 and a bit years. No new RFP has been published by FAMPA for 5 and a bit years to get new on-call contracts. So we've used the same Michael Baker and Cambridge Systematics by my predecessor and by.
And I think there's a discussion about recompeting that, and somehow that keeps getting kicked down the road, ran out of time, and this and that.
So the answer to that is that I've already drafted a new RFP to get new on-call contracts. I've sent it around my staff, they've given me their input. It's going tomorrow morning to Kate and the team at GWRC to check the language. It's about to come.
So that's good. So my question was, and then we need to do that anyway. But so if Cambridge did some modeling or predictive modeling or whatever they call it for the previous smart scale, did they go back and validate the results based on here's the actual results and the scoring? We're able to go back and put that back into their formula to determine whether how accurate they were, or
I don't know whether they've done that because the scoring of the projects is got a complex matrix of things.
sure.
And Cambridge Systematics models the impact, for example, on congestion and the roadways. They don't do any financial stuff.
So my point is there any value in their model if it really doesn't impact or doesn't really predict what this outcome is going to be?
No, the model does, and I'm not defending Cambridge Systematics. We're about to put out a new RFP, so we'll get new people. But the point of the modeling is that it tells you the impact on congestion and the impact on the roadways and the impact on all those things. But if the smart scale gurus at head office use 4 other factors to choose which projects, they're not only going to look at congestion, they look at road safety, they look at air quality, they look at a whole bunch of things. So the modeling is one part of like 5 categories. And so it's valuable for that one category. It will tell you, and we're going to use modeling a little to look at the east-west mobility. It's a 2-phase study, but I won't get into that. And the point there is, where are the worst, most congested roads 20 years from now? Where are they? I want to know that so that I can use that to assist our jurisdictions to plan where to upgrade the roads, and it will inform our small scale applications, our applications for funding from DRPT, et cetera, et cetera. So they're fit together. But the modeling of Cambridge Systematics is one of like 5 factors. It's not the only one, unfortunately.
Okay. Could we get the goals and objectives now?
Yes, Stacey,
Ms. Fine?
that's fine.
Yep, I'm here. So, good afternoon, everyone. This is Stacy Fine. I am FAMPO's Public Involvement Coordinator. And you'll want to pay close attention to this presentation because after, you're going to be asked to approve a set of goals and objectives to be included in the draft of the region's new long-range transportation plan, known as the 2050 LRTP. An important, you can stay on that other slide, Adam. Thanks. An important part of developing a new long-range plan is public outreach. We must provide the public with a way to meaningfully participate in the planning process. And so last month we wrapped up the first phase of our public outreach for the new long-range plan. This outreach sought public input on a proposed set of transportation goals and objectives for the region as a whole. Now you can change the slide, Adam. Why is it important to develop goals and objectives for the LRTP, and what are the implications of them? So first, the LRTP needs to include goals and objectives. The goals convey what the region wants to accomplish by 2050, and the objectives detail the steps that we'll take to achieve those goals. And I want to stress that these are regional goals and objectives, not just goals and objectives for FAMPO specifically. They should guide the work of everyone involved in the region's transportation system, so it's going to take cooperation of all parties. And after they are adopted, staff and other stakeholders need to develop strategies and measures, and also periodically review whether efforts are being made to meet the goals. You can turn to the next slide.
Yeah, can I get the rest of the beans?
Okay, I think somebody's mic's on. I'll give them a second to mute their mic. Okay. So on this slide, to gather public feedback on the goals and objectives, staff developed a survey with feedback from TAC and CTAC members. to ensure the survey would allow the public to meaningfully participate in the planning process, and also to ensure that the survey would produce useful feedback for decision makers. The survey asked the public to weigh in on what we call the baseline goals and objectives, and we developed these baseline goals and objectives from the current 2045 LRTP, and also by incorporating staff, TAC, and CTAC member input. On the survey, the public indicated their level of support for each goal and objective, and they were able to provide written comments as well as propose new goals and objectives. Next slide, please. Survey distribution. We distributed news of the survey at 2 in-person events at Fred Central, where we spoke directly with 46 riders and drivers. Free snacks were passed out with information on how to take the survey. You can see on your screen there some of the snacks with the labels. There was also a press release. We created a web page with informational videos. We did social media posts and ads as well as live streams. VRE helped to spread the word by featuring news of the survey in their rider newsletter and on their website. And we also advertised the survey by sending out 477 emails as well as follow-up emails. You all should have received those. And then finally, we posted flyers at local breweries and cafes. Hopefully some of you saw those around town, and that's what you can see in the center of the slide there. Next slide, please. We were really pleased with the level of participation. There were 670 survey views. We've never had that many. 34% of those who viewed the survey took it. It may sound low, but it's actually fantastic given the topic of this survey. And also the time stated for a participant to complete the survey, which was between 5 and 10 minutes. So survey viewers saw that right off the bat. However, those who took the survey actually spent even longer. They spent 13 minutes on average and gave us very detailed written feedbacks. And we actually received about 400 written comments. One survey question asked participants to rate their satisfaction with the survey's ability to provide them with a meaningful way to participate in the planning process. And 73% of those who answered that question rated the survey with 4 or 5 stars out of 5 stars. So basically, I think it's safe to say the survey was a hit. Next slide, please. I mentioned we received about 400 written comments. So how did we incorporate those into the process of developing a new set of goals and objectives? The short answer is not very easily. There's a lengthy report included in tonight's agenda that lays out the process staff used to sort all those public comments and use them to edit the baseline goals and objectives proposed in the survey. You can also see in the report how the goals and objectives were modified based on public feedback. And there's even a side-by-side comparison between the baseline goals and the revised goals based on public feedback. Staff also considered numerical data that showed overall level of support for each goal and objectives, and you can find the graphs of this data in the full report as well. Next slide. As I said, you can read the public comments in the report and review the graphs, but I will give you a few highlights of public sentiment. First, there were many comments that acknowledged goals and objectives were important, but achieving them wouldn't be possible without regional cooperation, and it would require decision makers to engage in productive communication. Also, trends in public comments reflect a common desire for the region's transportation system to offer convenient multimodal options and for those options to be connected. So what might a convenient and connected multimodal system look like, you might wonder? One example might be, think of a traveler might commute to work in DC by taking a sidewalk from their neighborhood to a sheltered bus stop. The bus arrives when they need it to, and then it takes passengers to the train station around the time of train departure. There would be a convenient way to pay for bus and train fare, and commuting back home using the same method would be possible and reliable. Another trend that we saw among the public comments received was to expand and improve Fred bus and passenger rail. People also expressed the need to solve vehicle congestion with innovative ideas. And although some expressed support for physical modifications to the roadways, many also voiced support to implement robust transportation demand management strategies to cut down on the need for people to travel by car. And then finally, we received many comments that a goal must be to harmonize land plans and transportation plans. Next slide, please. Based on the public survey data, staff created the 7 goals that you see in front of you. Goal 1 deals with creating an efficient and connected multimodal system. Goal 2 deals with strategically developing, managing, and preserving what we already have. Goal 3 deals with safety for all modes. Environmental goals are included in Goal 4. Goal 5 includes using the transportation system to support the region's economic vitality. And Goal 6 reflects the importance of ensuring that the transportation system improves mobility for vulnerable groups specifically. And then the final goal, Goal 7, stresses the importance of including the public in the transportation planning process. We'll now pull up the full set of goals and objectives that we have developed based on public input, as well as staff, TAC, and CTAC members' feedback. And we're asking that you consider adopting these goals and objectives for the draft 2050 LRTP. TAC and CTAC were both presented the same information. TAC endorsed the goals and objectives. However, CTAC was unable to make a determination. And would be happy to place this back on CTAC's agenda if you'd first like to have their thoughts, or you may vote to adopt the goals and objectives tonight. And I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Mr. Kelly.
What was the CTAC's issues, or what was the specific conversation about this?
This is Dick McLaughlin. I probably should address that as the chair. We found that it was just a very cumbersome system to go through a meeting of 18 people and go through, and we had we started debating words and the sub-objectives and things like that. We just couldn't come to, we just couldn't get anywhere. And so the motion never got seconded, and that was the end of it.
So it's not any specific issues with the goals, it was more wording and.
I can't even say that, because we just got so mired down. There was no big, I totally disagree, but it was, even if you have one person who says, I want to argue about this particular sub-objective, it just was really, if I had to do it over as a chair, I would approach the whole effort very differently.
If I could just make one comment, the problem with achieving a long list of goals like that in a meeting is that you've got to do one or two things. You've either got to make one minor change and vote the thing through, or you've got to have a really long meeting, and you've got to have everybody committed to spend time and nitpick through the language of the whole damn thing. Excuse my language. But Chair,
I say words.
If that is the issue here. And we had just one or two people, I think, at the CTAC who actually wanted to make some amendments, which generally weren't supported, but they had to go through the whole process, and it becomes quite cumbersome. I think the McLaughlin is quite right. It becomes quite cumbersome when you want to shift the comma, add in 3 words, change the heading, disagree with the second half of the clause. Those may be important things to you as a person, but to do that in a committee is a really, really cumbersome task.
Well, the main point, Commissioner, there's no big philosophical issues with the document. I mean, the general direction was not questioned. It was more a word here, a word there. Is that a fair assessment?
We got so mired down, I couldn't even say, I don't think there really was. I mean, these are foundational documents. They're not things that are going to make one project be a higher priority than another project. So I don't think there was that kind of
deep-rooted problem with the goals and objectives. It just got totally mired down. We never even got through them all.
I didn't see anything in here that frankly is
Right.
controversial in any way, shape, or form. That's okay. Thank you.
So, Mr. Kelly, do I take that as a form of a motion?
I'll make the motion. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any
So, please don't
discussion?
try it. We just reached out, Leah, the interview is supposed to be recorded.
Yeah, Ms. Panuccia, second. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in approve, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Abstentions? Chair votes aye. Motion passes.
Congratulations, you just approved the first little section of the LRTP. Done.
We're ready. Okay, thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is the FY 21-24 TIP update. Ms. Chandler?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, everyone. The first resolution, 2116, is for approving the FY 21-24 TIP rollover amendment. So in the fall of 2019, any updates or changes to the statewide transportation improvement program were put on pause so that the document could transition to the next 4 fiscal years. So moving from 2018 to 2021, and then transitioning it to 2021 to 2024. During this time, the local MPO tip could be updated and amended so that the UPC blocks that are attached to this document have previously been voted on and approved in the 2018 to 21 document. However, we're just transitioning these changes into the next 4 fiscal years. And this item was brought to the committee last month, and we're now seeking approval for this item. And I can take any questions if there are.
Do we have any questions in the room?
Madam Chair, I'll move the amendment.
Second.
Motion has been, second, that was fast. Any discussion?
I want to get in trouble again.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Chair votes aye, motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next item on the agenda is Resolution 2117. Who will be presenting that?
Me as well, Madam Chair.
Okay.
So as noted in the approval of the meeting agenda, this has transitioned to an action item. So this resolution, 2117, is amending 3 different UPC projects. VDOT came to us in the past few months with updates for these projects, and this resolution adds and adjusts funding for these projects to advance them into different stages of development. All these projects do not need a new air quality conformity determination since they were either not regionally significant or had been included in the conformity determination in May 2020. Again, these updates are just to add and change funding to move these projects forward into new stages of development. And I can also take any questions on these before the vote.
Madam Chair, so moved.
Second.
Thank you. Motion has been moved in second. Any discussion? All who approve say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Chair votes aye, motion is approved.
Done.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the annual review of GWRC Vanport MOU.
Madam Chair, this is the one you were referring to earlier. This is the MOU between us and the GWRC. The document says in itself that we must bring it to this board for annual approval and or an amendment. So we're just doing our due diligence as the staff to bring it to your attention and remind you. The document is before you and we are asking you to approve it again.
So there's no action today.
Well,
The action is to accept the current version.
GWRC approved it, that just leave the document, we can continue on.
But we'll gladly take any questions or any proposal from the floor.
Madam Chair, I'll move that we maintain the MOU as written.
Do we have a second?
Any second for the motion?
Second. if Fredericksburg can be both a motion and a second, just to
Our motion, just-
just moving.
Yeah, we'll go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Motion has been moved and seconded.
Second by Mr. McLaughlin.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all approve, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Chair votes aye. Motion's been approved. Next item on the agenda has a special executive committee meeting.
Chair, as you know, it's awfully embarrassing for me to talk about this item, but it's quite simple. The public hearing that we had at the beginning of this meeting, we cannot action it today because the 30 days only expires 2 days from now. So we're requesting that this meeting authorizes the executive of FAMPO to have a 10-minute meeting on Thursday this week to approve the document because we can't approve it tonight. So that's what we're asking for. And we've asked if, with the approval of FAMPO, the three chairs as the executive could meet us for 10 minutes on Thursday to approve the UPWP amendments, because that's when the 30 days public input and public hearings conclude. And we've received no comments from the public in 27 or 28 days. So we doubt there's going to be any comments. So we just need a 10-minute meeting to approve it. And we don't want to get the whole of FAMPO back together. But we're doing this publicly because we need this body to authorize the executive to meet on Thursday and vote yea or nay to approve the UPWP amendment.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. The motion has been moved and seconded. All who approve say aye.
Aye.
Any nay?
I think I already told
Great.
you the time and everything.
Could we just agree the time on Thursday when you could, and we'll do it all online, so you don't have to get together with anything. So if you could just give us a time that the three chairs would be available.
Okay, can I finish getting the vote?
Oh,
I'll get the vote and then we'll do that.
sorry, I'll be-
All who approve say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstention? Chair votes aye. The three of us will get together and decide what that time is.
Don't public hearing, but we have to download it.
Okay.
So there's a notice, we're gonna post it on the door tonight, just when you tell me the time.
Thursday.
Thursday,
I think early afternoon or late afternoon.
it could be any time on Thursday, we just need to put the time and announce it on the door.
Later in the afternoon is better for me, just trying.
5,
Schedule gets so crappy.
4,
I can do, you can do 4:30, it's fine with me.
Mr. McLaughlin,
I'm good.
4:30,
6, 5, whatever.
Chair?
Noon.
I can do 4:30.
Because I don't think it's a mess of things. can
It's only take 2 minutes.
That's good. All we're gonna do is say, are you present? Yeah. You vote yeah. Done. You
Let's
got
go
it.
4:30.
4:30?
4:30, so the meeting to adopt the UPWP amendment will be of the executive at 4:30 on Thursday this week for the minutes. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Apologies for the interruption. Chair.
Thank you. Item number 9, did we receive any correspondence?
We did not, as a staff, receive any correspondence this month. We dealt last month with the ones we had last month, but we've had no new correspondence.
All right, thank you. Next item is item number 10. Do we have any staff or agency reports?
To my knowledge, we don't have anything new. We've already covered the fact that EDOC is going to bring their item back to a later meeting. They asked for a delay. We do not have any staff changes or reports to make at this time.
Okay, thank you. Item number 11 is board member and chair comments. Usually I don't want to go first, but this one I did. I know that GWRC made a change to their meeting time, which might provide an opportunity for us to think about when we want to change our meeting time. Chair Bender, what time did you guys change time?
We're doing the fourth Monday of the month.
Fourth Monday of the month.
That's what we're doing.
So it's not the same night.
Was there a quorum here?
It's not the same night anymore. It's not the same Monday.
As you hear, that gives us an opportunity perhaps to move this meeting forward.
So the fourth
So-
Monday of the month.
No, not to.
Again, I mean. might have another meeting, another night that's destroyed.
Mr. McLaughlin, I didn't know you had such a sense of humor. I didn't know you had such a sense of humor.
Well, that wasn't a sense of humor. The idea is, don't to ruin it today. You might as well ruin it one day instead of. Because it's generally all the same.
I think my reason to move GWRC was just, again, to separate, so.
There you go. Just separate GWRC and Fayetteville and we solve.
Separate
Oh,
me.
dear
Okay,
God.
go ahead, that conversation, that's right, the whole, let's get the,
Conversation. So I just want to bring it up. So, next, you'll have it as an item on the agenda to just officially discuss it next time.
Can you just agree with me what time you want the next meeting? Because the next meeting would be set for March the 15th.
no, just keep the meeting as is, we'll just.
You want to keep it at 7:15 again?
Yeah.
Is there no Fayetteville for
There's no
GWRC?
meeting.
There's no GWRC board meeting that night.
Says that at 7:15.
Can we do it at like 5?
It suits me, it's my birthday, so I'm
Oh.
about to change
Well, let's, in honor of your birthday, let's not have.
Oh, yeah. Wait, do we have to have it?
Have it at 5, have it at 6, have it at 7, whatever.
Six is fine.
But
Gets,
it's no longer on the same night.
biggest, I gotta sometimes drive from Waxahachie places to get here.
It's up to all of you.
Anybody, the proposal is to move our meeting on March 15th to 6 PM and then have a further discussion. Are we going to move all meetings to?
To the fourth Monday.
Yeah,
Instead of the 15th.
all right.
Why don't you move GWRC to the second?
Is that accepted? Then we have it at 6 PM?
6
It's
p.m.
a
fine.
new item, we don't vote on it, so
Well, no, we
Thank
don't
you.
even need to, I think that's just.
it's a consensus, yeah.
Okay, so we will schedule it for 6 PM on that day. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any other board members wish to make any comments?
No, thank you for not doing roll call.
Anyone online? Hearing none, the last item is to adjourn this policy committee meeting.
Yay,
Thank you. Our next meeting will be March 15th at 6 PM.
thank you, everyone.
This conference is no longer being recorded.